This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and as always, I would like to remind you guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop stuff. Make sure you never miss an episode. If you could as well, give us a 5-star rating and write us a nice review. It would be very appreciated. Help us if you guys didn't like, help us get better, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, which I know a lot of you are, we are on social media, so you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever social media platform you're using, we're using, so we can talk, we can chat, we can discuss. And the NBA trade deadline gave us some interesting things to discuss. Now, would I say any high-profile player got traded? It depends on your definition of high-profile. Big names, maybe not big, but well-known names got moved, and there's quite a few people changing teams as of according to this Thursday night, so as of earlier Thursday, and one of the biggest ones, and arguably probably the biggest one in trade that is, was the Warriors and T-Wolves swapping All-Stars? Swapping former lottery picks? I don't know, however you want to word it, but they swapped some players. The Warriors traded D'Angelo Russell, Amari Spellman, and Jacob Evans to the Wolves for Andrew Wiggins, a top 3 protected pick in 2021, not 2020, which is a big difference. We'll talk about that in a second. And then 2021 second-round pick. Now, if I were to list the players that I thought D'Lo could be traded for when he initially got traded to the Warriors as a part of the sign and trade, Andrew Wiggins was one that would probably be on that list, and was one that people mentioned a while back, just because you're kind of looking at like, all right, what would the Warriors need? Who would fit those needs? Who has the money to match up with D'Lo? And Wiggins was just a guy who, if the Wolves wanted to move on from him, and B, the Warriors decided they wanted to bring him on, it made a lot of sense for both sides. D'Lo was always kind of going to be a weird fit with the Warriors, just because of like the backcourt situation, because once Steph and Clay are healthy, they're always going to be the starters. And it's like, do you play D'Lo at the 3 or do you play Clay at the 3? And it's just like, does it really matter? Not really, as we're seeing with the Rockets, who are going without a center, and all their starters are like 6'5" and below. So the positions in basketball are becoming a lot more skewed now. The way that was like very rigid, like, oh, this guy's a point guard, this guy's a shooting guard, this guy's a power forward, all that stuff, that doesn't really matter as much these days. But still, the fit was always going to be weird. Obviously, for whatever reason, the Warriors decided to move on. Like I said, the season hasn't gone how they wanted, but also they didn't expect Steph to play, 3 games? D'Lo's missed time, Draymond's missed time. Obviously, Clay wasn't going to be back. Season hasn't gone how they wanted, and they decided, hey, let's try to flip him being D'Lo, obviously. And then they flipped him to a team that was in desperate need of point guard. We talked about on the last podcast, I believe, or if not the last podcast, we talked not that long ago about how the Wolves were devoid of a point guard after making some moves. So they needed a guy to add in, and also they needed a guy to try to find a way to make Karl Anthony Towns happy. Because this season at least. And, I mean, maybe go back a little further, but definitely this season, he hasn't been happy. Obviously, he's missed some time, so he hasn't played the full season, but I think they've lost, 13 in a row, something crazy. The team has been struggling, and he's said some things in post game or in media scrums revolving around the struggles that the team is having this year and how disgruntled he is by that. So the Wolves have to do something to try to appease him, and if the team's gonna be sorry, at least let the man be on a sorry team that also happens to have one of his friends in the league. And I think that's, as much as, again, they needed a point guard, so it makes sense in that aspect. I think a big part of this was the fact that they could trade for someone that you knew Carl wanted to play alongside. I know there was, I think it was it Slam Magazine? I don't know. I know there was a cover with him, D'Lo, and Devin Booker on it in the offseason. They've all discussed teaming up potentially. Obviously, it's very hard to do now because they're all locked into contracts, though D'Lo did just get traded. So, not impossible. But still, it was a situation where the Wolves had to do something in order to, like I said, make their star player happy, because if the season continued how it was going and him and Wiggins still didn't gel the way that you would hope for at this stage in both of their careers respectively, then you're looking at a situation where maybe Cat's trying to find his way out of Minnesota in the offseason. And at the very least, they kind of put a hold on that for the time being, just because honestly, I'm not really sure how the fit's going to work on the court, but at the very least, it's kind of like anything. It's not like if you're working just a normal job, not even an athlete. Like, you want to go to work and be around people that you want to be around. That makes the job more enjoyable. No matter what it is you're doing, the people you're around can make your experience better, or they can make it worse. And as of right now, the people around Cat were making his experience worse. So, even though the experience still might not be great, because you're still living in Minnesota. No offense to anybody living in Minnesota, but it's cold. Well, colder than most other places. The team's still going to be sorry. Like, the deal does not automatically make them a viable playoff team. That's just not not going to happen. But at the very least, at least he'll be around somebody he would like to be around, which will make the experience slightly better for him. So this is a situation where, like I said, I'm not sure how much better they will be on the court, but at least off the court, Carl should be happier. Again, winning cures everything, so if they were winning, I imagine he would have been happy. But the fact that they're not, coupled with the fact that maybe him and Wiggins don't really gel that well, kind of led to them having to make some sort of move. And obviously, this is the one that kind of made the most sense for them in terms of guys that are available in the point guard market on the trades and from a trade aspect. And then on the flip side of this, for the Warriors, I mean, this is a better fit for them, like I said, than D'Lo was, because again, he could slide into that small forward role. But it's still a weird one, because we're 6 years into Wiggins' career, and like, I know there was kind of a debate on Twitter earlier, and it's kind of true. Like, if you told me Wiggins was overrated, I would agree with you. And if you told me Wiggins was possibly underrated, I would agree with you. I mean, he's a guy that averages 20-plus points a game, which, I mean, that's great. But it's hard to, those numbers, and we'll talk about them with some other guys too. It's hard to really gauge the numbers like that when you're on a bad team, because obviously it's easier to put up numbers in theory on a bad team. So that kind of clouds things a little bit. But he's a guy that's averaging what? He's averaging 22. He's averaged 20 points for most of his career. He's averaging 22 points, 5 rebounds this season. Not really shooting that great from 3, but again, it is what it is. He hasn't really been a great jump shooter his entire career, so that's not anything new. But on the Warriors, he won't have to be like technically especially with Carl out for a good portion of this season. He's gonna have to be the number 1 guy, at worst the number 2 guy. And once all the pieces are back for the Warriors, that's never gonna happen. He's gonna have to be just like better version of like what Harrison Barnes was before KD came, because obviously he can't be KD. that'd be blasphemous. That would be blasphemous for me to say that he was going to replace KD. That's just not possible. But he could potentially be like the Harrison Barnes type of guy, where just like he has nights where he can go for 20, 30 points a game, but that's not really his required role. So just on theory, in theory, it seems like a better fit for him there. Though I am interested to see how him and Draymond will work, because it was well documented how much Jimmy Butler hated Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns, and Draymond kind of strikes me as a guy cut from a similar cloth as Draymond. Draymond strikes me as a guy cut from a similar cloth as Jimmy Butler, and that they're the guys that weren't highly touted, weren't high draft picks. They expect people to come in and work hard, give effort on the defensive end, get effort all the time. I mean, you've seen if KD can catch the wrath of Draymond, then I would be shocked if Wiggins doesn't. So I think that'll be the big thing, just to see, because again, he's no Steph, no Clay, so it's not the full team together, but how he plays and how the team feels about him for the rest of the season will be interesting to see what happens with him next year. Because again, he could be a guy that if he plays well, puts up some good numbers, he could be a flippable guy in the offseason, or maybe he could be a long-term piece. He's only, 24, I think? 24, 25, somewhere in his mid-20s. So he's a guy that could be here long-term. Obviously, he has, 4 years left on his deal, and kind of getting paid a lot of money, so it's not like it'll be easy to move. But again, you could have said that about D'Lo, but obviously it worked out. But that'll be an interesting one, just because, Draymond doesn't seem like a guy who's going to take kindly to lack of effort, and that has been a knock on Wiggins in the past. So, I mean, I think, I forgot, I was watching some show today, and they kind of referred to this as like a heat check for the Warriors culture, and that they think they can, just a lot of winning cultures. A lot of winning cultures believe that they can bring anybody in, get them to conform to their system, their way of life, their way of thinking, and anybody can thrive. And I think this will be a very good case study to see how true that is, because, like I said, Wiggins has been a guy who hasn't maybe lived up to his potential as a number one overall pick. Obviously, he's put up good numbers, but he's not like the perennial all-star, all-NBA caliber player that you would expect, MVP caliber player that you would expect when you get a number one pick. So it'll be interesting to see how a change of scenery works. So some guys just need that. I mean, different degrees, and obviously he's not really lighting the world on fire, but Markelle Fultz has played better in a different role, though obviously Orlando doesn't have high expectations. The Warriors, when everybody's healthy, have championship expectations, so it's a little bit different scenarios. But a lot of people change teams, change franchises, and you see them. Sometimes you see them thrive, sometimes you see them stay the same player. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, Wiggins is who he is, to a degree. Obviously, he's still youngish, so he can change. But he's 6 years in, I believe. At this point, you kind of know who he is and know who he isn't. Very few guys make drastic changes to their style of play 6-7 years into their careers. But you never know. So that'll be interesting to see just how he plays and how he ingratiates himself with the Warriors culture. But also just to see, because I don't want to say in theory, because again, he's still young, so there's somebody else that may take a chance on him. But you would think that if the Warriors can't help fix up his reputation, then it's going to be tough for anybody to do it, because they seem to find a way to get people to buy in and play well once they get on their team. But Wiggins might be a good case study for how good that culture is, and if they are still really light years ahead of everybody else, like they like to tell people back in the day. Back in the day meaning like a couple years ago. But it'd be interesting to see how that works. But yeah, that wasn't the only big name. Again, D'Lo and Wiggins, I don't want to refer to them as big names. Big name guys like LeBron's, AD's, Giannis's of the world. They're recognizable names, I guess you could say. So these guys weren't the only recognizable names that were traded in the trade deadline. We'll talk about a couple more of those and see, and I'll give my opinions on how I like the moves and if the moves made sense to me right after this break. So stay tuned.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Necessarily a surprise, but just an interesting move because he hadn't played it all this year, was Andre Iguodala. He was sent to the Heat along with Jay Crowder and Solomon Hill in a 3-team trade that the Heat believe will help bolster their chances to make a deep playoff run. The Grizzlies got back Justice Winslow, Gordy Jang, and Deion Waiters, and the Wolves got James Johnson. So from these perspectives, this is, and also, quick sidebar. The last year's an option year, but the fact that Iggy got the 2-year extension for $30 million off of this, I don't know who his agent is, but that man needs to be teaching classes on sports agents, like whatever you want to call it. He needs to be teaching classes on how to do this because clearly that man is excellent at his job. Whatever he's getting paid is not enough. But then again, Iggy just got some extra money, so maybe you could slide him a little bit more. But the fact that he can sit out, he can come back, Iggy. He looked throughout the last year like he was getting a little old. You weren't really sure if he was still going to play. All right, he decided he's still going to play. He gets traded to Memphis, decides, hey, look, you guys are sorry. I'm not playing for you guys. And Memphis has done good without him, so maybe he was wrong about that. They could probably use some of that veteran leadership on that team, but that's neither here nor there. And then he gets traded to a new team after sitting out this whole year, just getting paid to sit at home, be on TV sometimes, just chill, work out, do whatever. And so he gets traded to Miami. Great place to live. I've never lived there, but I've been there. It's great. And then gets more money on top of that. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know what kind of negotiation tactics Andre Iguodala's agent uses, but everybody should be employing those because that man clearly knows what he's doing. But from the basketball aspect, this is interesting for the Heat just because, like I said, there were points during last year, especially during the playoffs, where Iggy looked like he didn't have much left. I know he shot really well from 3 in that Rockets series, and then he basically just missed every shot from 3 after that in the Blazers series, and then a little bit in the Raptors series. But I know the last game, that Game 6, he played really well in. So that's kind of what you need from him. You don't need him to be good throughout the entirety of the regular season. That's not what a guy Iguodala's there for. He's 35, almost 36 years old at this point. You just need him to be there for the playoffs, provide some leadership because the Heat were a team that outside Jimmy Butler didn't really have too much playoff experience that would have been playing because you got young guys like Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo. Like a lot of their guys haven't gone through those wars of the playoffs yet. They're going to this year, but they haven't done that yet. So adding Iguodala gives them a guy that's been there, done that, can help coach these guys through what to expect in the playoff scenario. And plus, he's just another guy who can provide some defense, can hit a big shot every now and again. He's not afraid of the moment, and also, like I said, provide some leadership. And on top of that, they add in Jay Crowder, who's another guy, a veteran guy. Like I said, doesn't have the finals experience, but he's been in deep playoff. He's been in playoff games. He's gone deep in the playoffs. So he knows what to expect. He can help some, like I said, he can continue to help those young guys out. Plus, he's a guy that can play defense, that can hit threes occasionally, and that's really all you need to do coming off of a bench. If you have a guy that can play defense and hit the open three, that's basically what any team's looking for at this point. So those two guys will be helpful. And obviously, when you're going up against guys like Giannis, Middleton, Siakam, who else? Tatum, Brown, Simmons, Tobias. There's a lot of good wing players out there. So you're going to need as many bodies as you can to throw at these guys. And obviously now having Jimmy Butler, having a Jay Crowder, having Iguodala, having maybe like a Bam if you go small, that just gives you more versatility there instead of having just one guy have to defend the best perimeter player all the time. It just, like I said, it just adds more versatility. And that's what's important for them. And then from a Grizzlies standpoint, they being able to trade a guy that didn't really play for you, or didn't play for you at all, and get back a piece in Justice Winslow, who is much younger than Iggy, though. He's been hurt, so that's taking on a bit of a risk there in terms of he's not a guy that's necessarily reliable in terms of his health. He's a guy that fits into their timetable in terms of they're young guys. They didn't really need a guy like Iguodala. Maybe didn't even need a guy like Jay Crowder, because these are guys that are veterans that you expect to be on playoff caliber teams. And while the Grizzlies might make the playoffs, they're not. That wasn't in part of the plan this year. So being able to take some of those guys and turn them into, take some of those guys and turn them into Justice Winslow and a protected first round pick is a pretty good deal from their perspective. And like I said, the pick came from taking on Iguodala in the summer. But yeah, so they get a young guy who can do some of the things that you would want an Iguodala or a Crowder can do. Maybe not as good from three, but he can do some of the same things. And like I said, he's a young guy, so he'll fit right in with the young guys they already have on their roster. So it'll be interesting to see how he gels, and obviously he has to get back to playing from his injury and stuff. So we'll see how he fits into there. But yeah, no, that's good. I don't hate that trade for all parties involved other than the Wolves. The Wolves are just taking on salary, I guess, and James Johnson. I really don't understand that aspect of it, but that's neither here nor is it there. Another interesting trade, I guess I won't say big, but interesting, was Andre Drummond got moved to the Cavs for basically nothing. John Henson, Brandon Knight, and second round pick. I did not know Brandon Knight was still in the league. Good for him, I guess. But yeah, this is a weird one because they have Kevin Love, they have Tristan Thompson. Doesn't seem like any of those guys are, well, obviously they can't go anywhere because they're not getting traded. But it doesn't seem like Tristan Thompson's going to get bought out, so it's just what is the point? Other than all right, you have a couple months to try to convince him to stay in Cleveland. If it's going well, and if it's not going well, then you just hope he opts out, which you probably will. And then he just leaves, and I'm just and then great, they trade him for nothing, so it doesn't really matter per se, but just the fit is weird. You already have big guys, and now you can't play Drummond, Kevin Love, and Tristan Thompson together. That doesn't make any sense there. Tristan Thompson and Drummond are redundant in terms of their skill sets. So then it's just all right, do you move Tristan Thompson to the bench? And then it's just if you do that, then how happy will he be? And it's just that's a weird situation. But again, I guess they'll have time to figure out to see how he plays well with Sexton and Garland. And if it works, then all right, cool. Then you have a guy who you can keep. And if not, then you just hope he opts out, really. But yeah, that was a weird one. Probably like I said, there's a couple other trades. The Sixers went out and added some depth on the wings in the form of Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson III from the Warriors. They only traded a bunch of 3 second-round picks, so basically nothing. But from the Sixers' perspective, they needed some three-point shooting on the wing. But Burks is shooting 37.5% from 3 on 4.7 attempts per game and averaging 16 points. And Glenn Robinson III is averaging 13 points and shooting 40% from 3. So they give them some length, give them some athleticism, give them some shooting, which they desperately need to help space the floor better when you have because the way that their roster is currently constructed is a little interesting, to say the least, just because they don't really have much shooting, which, I mean, if you looked at their roster before the season, that's what you kind of knew, but they didn't really address it. Now they're trying to address it. And the points per game, that kind of stuff doesn't really matter, like I said before. When you're on a bad team, you can inflate that number, so they're not... Ogber's not going to be expected to score 16 points per game for the Sixers now. But at least if him and Glenn Robinson III can continue to shoot well from three, they'll help space the floor, help provide some, like I said, more open lanes, more room for Embiid to work in the post, more cause defenses not to be able to sag off Ben Simmons as much. And also, like I said, just replace the Mike Scotts of the world who have been struggling. Take some of the shots that maybe Al Horford's been shooting from three when he shouldn't be. And stuff like that. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they mix in, but at least I respect Elton Brand for trying to do something to fix the team and address their needs, though they probably still could have. They still need a legitimate, like, point guard. Backup point guard, I guess you could say, because Ben Simmons runs point. But I know they talked about wanting him to do more screening and more power forward type things, and they still don't have a point guard that can still don't have a point guard that would allow him to do those things on the roster, but we'll see what they can find, maybe from the buyout market or something. But yeah, that's not a bad. And then obviously the Warriors just trade guys that they weren't going to need after this year anyway, so anytime you can get something for guys that are most likely going to leave, free agency is good. And speaking of guys that were going to leave in free agency, one of the biggest hauls of the day was the Clippers getting Marcus Morris. They also got Isaiah Thomas, but it doesn't seem like they're going to keep him. But they got him from the Knicks, and all they have to do is trade Mo Harkless, 2020 first, which I mean is going to be low, so it doesn't really affect them, and a 2023 second round pick, and then also sent Jerome Robinson to the Wizards. And from the Clippers' perspective, this is helpful in my opinion, because he's a guy who, I know he's averaging 20 points right now, but again, he was on the Knicks. There was really not that many people to take the shots. He's not gonna average close to that with the Clippers, but he also doesn't need to. So he provides just more offense. Also, another veteran, because again, when you're a playoff caliber team, you want as many veterans guys as you can have, because obviously they've been there. They're not going to be scared of the moment. They're going to be ready to go in those type of situations. And also, just more lineup flexibility, just because if you have a lineup with, Pat Bev... I mean, you can also go with a lineup with Pat Bev, Lou Will, Kawhi, PG, and Morris if you want to go super small. And if you wanted to go a little bit bigger, take out Pat Bev and add in Harrell. And those are two pretty good lineups to close with. You got switchability on the wings, and you have scoring and shooting. I think who was that? I saw something on Twitter where like the Clippers have like 7 guys or 8 guys that shoot like 30% or 35% or more from three. Yeah, Lil Will shoots 35. JaMychal Green, and though Marcus Morris is gonna take his minutes, so it doesn't really matter. He shoots 36. Pat Bev shoots 36. Kawhi shoots 37. Shamet shoots 39. Paul George shoots 40, and Marcus Morris shooting almost 44% from three this year. So, I mean, when you have that kind of when you can have that much spacing on the floor, it opens everything up for everybody else. And then also, just in terms of defensively, it gives them another guy to throw out the wings on the West. So whether that's like the LeBrons of the world, or who else? The Hardens, the Westbrooks. I'm trying to think, like Donovan Mitchell's, those kind of guys. You have. I mean, mainly LeBron. That's, and then obviously if they were able to get to the NBA Finals, the Giannis of the world. When you have guys where you can throw different guys at them, give them different looks. You're not just expecting one guy to have to go out there and stop the best wing offensive player on the other team. Like I said, it makes your team more dangerous because you can do different things, you can try different things with different guys and go with what's working. And that's kind of what the Clippers will be able to do now with Morris on the team. So, yeah, that was interesting. And he was a guy who, I mean, and at the very least, if not for nothing else, the Lakers didn't get him. And I know they were going after him, though. it was what the Knicks wanted from the Clippers and the Lakers. If true, it was very weird because it seemed like they wanted Kuzma really bad, but then you can't just trade Kuzma because he's not making enough money, so you need to trade in like Danny Greens or somebody other, and it's just like that's too much to give up for Marcus Morris. No offense to him, though. In my opinion, he does what Kuzma could do better because not that he could be the third star because he's not that, but at least he provides you more consistent offense than Kuzma does at this moment. Not that he can't grow into that, but right now for this team, Kuzma does not consistently give you enough on the offensive end for you to go into playoff series counting on him to be your third guy. But yes, then for nothing else, and the Clippers just kept him away from the Lakers, which I mean that's one of your biggest competitions in the West. I don't say your biggest just because there's other good teams, the Nuggets, like I said, Nuggets, Rockets, Jazz, maybe even. There are other good teams in the West. I'm not just going to say it's just the Lakers, but actually they were the team that were fighting for his services just as much, and not letting him go there is almost just as good as getting him yourself. It's just making sure he doesn't go to the rival that you share a building with. That was important. So yeah, I mean, not too many like I said, big names getting traded, and that wasn't even all of it. There was still like we talked about. I mentioned on the other podcast, Clint Capella got traded. The Rockets are going extra small, though. It worked out today against the Lakers. I mean, if they're going to hit 19 threes and they're going to play the best defense that they've played arguably all season, then they should be fine. But, I mean, you can't account for that every game. But at least for a one-game sample size, it worked out for the Rockets. We'll see how it holds up over the course of the rest of the season into the playoffs, because even the Warriors didn't go with the Hampton 5 lineup all season. They went for a minute in the playoffs when they had to. And even then, they still had a 7-foot Kevin, not officially, but a 7-foot Kevin Durant out there on the floor, too. It wasn't like they just had guys 6'5" and below. So, a little bit different. But, yeah, worked for the Rockets. So, yeah, the Clint Capella, he got traded in that wild 4-team, 12-player trade. That was a mess. But, yeah, so then, yeah, I mean, not, like I said, not too many big names, but it's still a pretty good amount of movement for a trade deadline, all in all. So we'll have to see how some of these teams fit these new players into their roster, how they gel, how they mesh, how the chemistry shakes up. Whether the teams start to go up, whether the teams start to go down, you never really know. That's always the danger with trading at this point in the season. Is if your team's doing well, you could potentially improve them by a lot, but you could also cause the team to regress just because a lot of sports are just locker room chemistry, and if you bring in a guy and he doesn't fit, then that could ruin everything, no matter how good he is on the court. So it's interesting to see how these teams play out how all these moves end up shaking out over the course of the season and obviously into the playoffs. That's what a lot of these teams made these moves for. So after this break, we're going to transition into the front office because the Knicks hired a new president of basketball operations. And it was not someone we would have thought, but they're following a trend that I've noticed is happening mainly just in basketball and baseball, but it's happening quite a bit, and I think this may be, I don't want to say it's going to be completely the future, but it could be something that we see more teams follow if it works out. And we'll talk about what that is and who that guy is right after this break, so sit tight.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So as I mentioned, there was a new man in the Knicks front office, and that man is, well, I guess former player agent, Leon Rose, who worked for a creative artist agency. Like I said, as a player agent, he's supposedly going to be brought on as the president of basketball operations. Well, not supposedly. He's going to be brought on as president of basketball operations. And this happened pretty quickly after the team fired former team president Steve Mills. And they are following a similar direction in terms of who they hired that some other teams have tried to follow. I mean, you have guys like Bob Myers for the Warriors, who was a former agent, and he's obviously they've had a lot of success. You've had Rob Pelinka, who was a former player agent, and he, again, his success, it's only been, 2 years, I think? Yeah, it's the second year. Last year was a wash, because LeBron got hurt and all that weird Anthony Davis trade rumor stuff. But this year seems to be going better. You got Anthony Davis, so that helps. Though, I'm not the first person to say this, but I honestly believe a lot of his job was just not screwing up LeBron wanting to come there, because it seemed like LeBron already had his eyes set on LA, and all they had to do was just not screw it up. And I guess I'll give him credit for not screwing it up, but it's not like it didn't seem like there had to be too much of a hard sell on LeBron to come to the Lakers. And obviously, the Anthony Davis thing, I'll give him credit for pulling off. But getting LeBron there, once LeBron's there, that makes your job a whole lot easier. So that definitely helped. But yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how he handles that, because this is a guy who obviously has no experience doing what he will be doing. He's a former play agent. Some of those players that he repped include Embiid, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Cat, Kuzma. He also repped LeBron and Allen Iverson in the past. So it'll be interesting to see how he transitions to a new role. And obviously, whenever you have those player agent stuff, you're always like, maybe they're trying to get Cat, or maybe they're trying to get Devin Booker. And I'm like, maybe. Obviously they might be, because these are good players, but they can't, because they just signed extensions. They're not going to get traded too soon. But that's more for down the line. But from the way I see it is that if you have a guy on a player agent, then at least he knows he should be able to deal with players in terms of, like, he's had to have relationships with players, whether on the team currently or just players in general throughout the league. So he should be able to work with them. And obviously he has an idea of how agents are going to come at him, seeing as he was an agent. So you know some of the tactics, some of the negotiation stuff that agents try to try, and also that front office guys try to try. So that he can now understand both sides of this. So that can be helpful, just in terms of what is contract negotiations and like trade stuff like that. You kind of have an idea of how that stuff works already, even though obviously he hasn't been the one to have to execute it. But yeah, this is a new thing that we've been seeing. Also, I know the Mets, who we'll talk about in a second, did this with Brody Van Wagner. They hired him. He was Jacob deGrom's agent, formerly, along with some other guys. But yeah, they hired him to be a non-traditional front office piece, just because normally you would think that you have guys that, whether they were scouts or personnel guys or assistant GMs or whatever, these are the kind of guys you would want to hire, but it's not the route the Knicks are going, and they're not alone in this. But it'd be interesting to see if more teams will do this, if these guys continue to be successful. Because, like I said, obviously Bob Myers has been a great success when it comes to this. Rob Pelinka, it's still TBD. Just because, like I said, this is only the second year. You got to see how this season unfolds and how the next couple years unfold to view it as a success or a failure. Though, at the very least, you got LeBron and Anthony Davis on the same team, so that's a success in its own right. The Mets are kind of a mess, so don't know how you view Brody just yet. But at least he was able to keep DeGrom, so there is that. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see, like, if these guys have success, do more teams go the non-traditional route when it comes to this? Because In theory, you'd want guys that have been in the front office, understand the front office, stuff like that. But I think just the way sports and all this analytical stuff and different things, that's not as important as it once was that experience, because you have guys that are hired. I think, who was it, like the Browns hired a former Mets front office guy to be like their GM or one of their front office people, and I'm like, he had never had anything to do with football before. He was a baseball guy, so it's just like you see teams around all sports just going and finding guys no matter the avenue in which they're coming from. They're just like, hey, we think this could be the best guy. We're going to hire him. It doesn't matter what his background was. It doesn't matter how he got to this point. If we think he'll be good at the job, boom, we're going to go hire him. And it could work. It could not. And my only worry for the Knicks is that I feel like they tried this to a degree with Phil Jackson. Not exactly the same. But you hired a guy to do a role that he had not ever previously done. And it was a disaster. Though he did get Kristaps, so I got to give him some credit for that. But then you traded him, so it didn't really matter. But at least he has that on his resume. He did do that right. If that's the only thing, it might be the only thing he did right during his time with the Knicks. But at least he did that. But yeah, it's just interesting to see, because the Knicks are in a situation where they need a lot of help, and I'm kind of surprised they went this route. I know it floated out there when they fired Steve Mills that the player agent could be the route that they go. And obviously, the Leon Rose seems to be well respected around the league from watching different shows and just reading about it. He seems to have a lot of respect. So it's not like they just hired anybody. They seem like they hired if you're going to go a player agent route, they hired a good guy. But just that obviously he's never done this job before, and the Knicks job is not just an easy job to step into and take over, because there's a lot of pressure to a degree in terms of New York fans are, maybe not Knicks fans, but like in general, the New York sports teams have won stuff, whether it's obviously with the Yankees or like the hockey teams or the football teams, even though they play in New Jersey, whatever. But yeah, like the New York is a town that views themselves as winners. So putting a lackluster product out there on the floor is not something though that the fans would want. So that's just an interesting thing, just to see how quickly he's able to get himself up to speed, because in theory, just like anything, when you try something new for the first time, there's going to be speed bumps, there's going to be road bumps, there's going to be things that you don't do right that you learn from and do better the next time. And I'm just like, do the Knicks give him that chance to make those mistakes? Because obviously you don't have a franchise as dysfunctional as the Knicks have been over the last how many every years you want to go back since Ewing left, I guess you could say. Without constantly having that turnover. That's basically one of the key components of a dysfunctional franchise, is having a lot of turnover. Just because they want things to be, they want to find a guy that can fix something right away, and if you can't fix it, then boom, they get rid of him and try to find the next guy. And it's just that, like, will they give this guy enough time in order to try to build it up right? And I guess that's obviously to be determined, because we don't really know what James Dolan thinks in terms of that stuff. Also, he's not selling the team, so sorry, Knicks fans, but that's not happening. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they give him the time and the resources needed to make the necessary changes to help put the franchise in the right direction. Because if he is able to do that, then he'll be revered in New York forever, because they are just waiting. You don't even need to win a championship. You don't even need to, like I said, have a 70-win team. To just like put together back-to-back competitive seasons at this point, and that would be enough. And I understand, just because the Knicks haven't just, if they have a good season, then something goes. Then they might have. Well, I gotta think what those early-ish mellow years. They had a couple of good years back to back, and then after that it was a disaster, and before that it was a disaster. So it's just like the Knicks are just waiting for someone to find a way to put together a couple seasons of competitive basketball. That's all they're asking for. Then and I mean, it doesn't seem too much to ask for from my perspective, just because putting together a competitive basketball team should always be the main goal. To a degree. Obviously, I mean, not everybody can win a championship, so you have 30 competitive basketball teams. But you shouldn't also just be in the lottery year after year after year. That's not how to get a fan base excited going to a new season. So that'll be interesting to see. Obviously, I'm not a big guy to say like, "Oh, this is a great move," or "Oh, this is a terrible move," because we really don't know. I'm gonna give Leon Rose the benefit of the doubt. See how it plays out. Give him time in order to make some moves, and then once he does good, I'll say that, and if he does bad, then I'll say that then. But as of right now, just interesting to see, and obviously maybe he'll be the guy that can finally get the Knicks franchise back on track. So going from one dysfunctional New York franchise to another one, we gotta talk about the Mets. They're going to sell their team, and now they're not going to sell their team. And yeah, we got to talk about how that all fell through, and then what's next. Honestly, what's next? Where do they go from here? So yeah, we'll get to that right after this break.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Network, and Mets fans, you almost had it. You were this close. You can't see my fingers, but let it be known I have very little space between my index finger and my thumb. You were that close to getting the Wilpons out of here. You were so close that I guarantee you, Mets fans out there, you could almost taste it, you could almost smell it. You knew it was happening. You're like, finally, the Wilpons will be gone. We don't have to worry about them and their lack of spending and lack of desire to put a competitive team out there on the field year after year. They were gone. You had it in your sights. You knew it was coming. And then, of course, it fell through, because that's a completely very Mets thing to have happen. A sale that seemed imminent, just to be like, at the very last minute, nope, just fall through. So, if you don't know and you weren't paying attention to the Mets, because again, outside the New York area, I would understand why you wouldn't. So the Mets were going to sell their team to a billionaire hedge fund manager named Steve Cohen, and now they're not. Multiple sources have confirmed. This is from the New York Post, but I mean you can find this anywhere, ESPN, what have you. But multiple sources confirmed to the Post that the biggest unsolvable issue in the now all but dead sale of the New York Mets to billionaire hedge fund manager Steve Cohen was the role that team heir and COO Jeff Wilpons would have in the transition of power and beyond. At the late stages of his agreement to buy 80% of the Mets franchise for $2.6 billion, a lot of money, I don't know how the Wilpons wouldn't just take that, Cohen was informed by Fred and Jeff Wilpons that their plan was for Jeff to maintain total operational control of the Mets throughout the pre-agreed to 5-year transition period and then maintain a senior role within the organization even after Cohen took over. While it is unclear whether the Wilpons, who said Thursday night they still plan to sell the team, sought to keep the COO title for Jeff after the transition, sources uniformly agree Jeff wanted to be a part of the decision-making under Cohen's ownership. And I mean, obviously, you would think they discussed this before. So this isn't something that should break down at the end, because This was a thing that they agreed upon, a thing that they knew about. But if I'm a new guy coming in and I'm paying $2.6 billion to take over the team, though he already had like a 5%, excuse me. 5% minority stake in the team, so he was obviously just buying a larger 8% stake in the team already. So he was just buying a larger portion of it. So if I'm that, I don't need the guys from the last regime hovering around and telling people, like, just going behind my back. I'm not necessarily to say this was going to happen, but yeah, it's the match, you never know. Going behind my back, undercutting what I'm saying, and basically just being like stragglers to a degree. And I think that's what was going to have happen. I understand the 5-year transition period because, if you're the Wilpons, you don't want to just sell your team today and then just boom, now it goes straight to Cohen immediately. You want to gradually lose power of it. But I think that's kind of the issue, was that they didn't want to lose power, and that's why they were trying to find a way to Jeff to stay on as some sort of advisor within the team, even though Cohen was technically going to be the owner now. And I'm just saying that's while it's understandable, it's just not something that if I'm the new owner, I need right now. It's just I don't need you meddling and just hanging around just because. Like, if we're going to clean house, we got to clean house. So if that's what broke it up, though. Again, this is something that should have been agreed upon beforehand. So I would hope he didn't. From Cohen's perspective, from the Wilpons perspective, I would hope Cohen didn't just back out of this at the last minute, or just like try to change that detail at the last minute. Like, hey, so like about Jeff staying on. What if? And hear me out. He didn't. I'm hoping that's not what Cohen did. Though, like I said, we don't really know. It's not a he said, so you don't really know who was necessarily in the right or who was demanding what, and we may never know. But if that is really what broke it up, then that is disappointing. If from a Mets fan perspective, because if it weren't for James Dolan, the Wilpons, and they still might be, honestly, but if it weren't for James Dolan, the Wilpons would probably be the most hated ownership, however you want to word it, in New York. Mets fans universally do not like them. The team has been relatively cheap in recent years, and then when they spend money on guys, it doesn't really work out. And as people who were involved in the Bernie Madoff scandal, I can understand why you'd want to be cheap. I know if I lost millions and millions of dollars in a Ponzi scheme, I'd be more reluctant to spend my money, let's put it that way. And so then you would think, all right, they finally have their out, they can get this very hefty chunk of change, boom, bam, be gone, they're done, they get their money, everybody's happy. But I just think just like certain people like to own sports teams. If I had enough money, I would do it. So I understand. Like, it's just a cool thing to be able to do. Or to say that you own, or to say that you have. Like, I could understand from their perspective, like, why they'd be reluctant to let it go, even though they claim they're still going to sell the team. But, there's no guarantee that they're going to get somebody that's going to be willing to pay $2.6 million for 80% ownership of the team. So, we'll see how that goes. But, like I said, they still should be able to find somebody, but it's just like this seemed like the perfect way for the Wilpons to cash out on their investment. Like I know they had been losing money. I don't know that for a fact. I don't know. I don't have access to their bank statements and their tax returns and all that stuff. But if they were losing money, they weren't, like I said, they weren't making as much as they would have hoped on the team. And a lot of it has to do with the team not being as great recently. Then, like I said, this would have been the perfect way to get out, and they botched it. And I can't just blame it on them, because I don't know it's all the Wilpons' fault. It could very well be Steve Cohen's fault as well, like I'm saying, trying to finagle and try to finesse things and try to change things at the last minute. Just be like, hey, so, like, this thing we agreed upon, we're not going to do that anymore. And if you're a part of negotiation, you can't just, like, you shouldn't, not say you can't, because people do. You shouldn't back out of an agreement or a certain aspect of an agreement at the last minute. Just be like, hey, like everything about it. Yeah, no, I don't want Jeff around anymore. Like, all right, we already agreed that was going to be a thing that you're going to have to deal with if you're going to buy the team. So now moving forward, where do the Mets go? It's a fair question. I don't know. And also, will that be a hang-up for the next guy? Because, like I already mentioned, if I'm a guy coming in, I want all the old stuff cleaned out. I don't need like no one. I don't say no one, but if you're buying, it's like I haven't bought a house yet. But if you're buying a house, you're buying an apartment. You may not want all the old furniture that's in there. You may not want all the old appliances that are in. You maybe want to update it. You maybe want to bring your own people. Bring your own stuff in. You don't want to just keep stuff around just because. Like it shouldn't. And I think that's kind of where they were at with it. Is just that like, hey, Jeff was kind of an agreed upon aspect of buying the team. Like he's going to be a part of the team in some capacity, and that may or may not have been a deal breaker for Cohen, and that may or may not be a deal breaker for the next guy. Just because not everybody, like I said, not everybody wants the old regime still hanging around. Not necessarily hanging over their head because they'll be majority owners of the team, but just hanging around and just being there. Just to be there, honestly. So, it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. It doesn't sound like the commissioner's going to step in, which I mean he shouldn't have to. Just as like this isn't like a Donald Trump situation. We have legitimate reason to force the guy to sell a team. Being a bad owner is not a good enough reason to sell a team. There's a lot of bad owners in sports, and not all of them are forced to sell a team. They need a legitimate reason, and this is not that. But it seems like, for all intents and purposes, this current deal is dead. Not that it can't come back up, but also Manfred said that he wasn't blaming the Wilpons for falling through, which I mean he can't because they are the owners still currently, so you can't badmouth the owners. So I understand that, but yeah, it's just the Mets just are going to be the Mets. When you think they're finally not going to be the Mets, then they still end up being the Mets. So yeah, we don't really know exactly what halted the deal, but all we know is that it's dead. For the time being, at least, that could very well change. But for the time being, it's the deal is dead, and the Wilpons will have to look elsewhere to get that money in order to sell the team. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if there's any news on that, or maybe the Wilpons will just own it forever. Who knows? It's just as likely as them. Though they said they still want to sell the team, but again, it takes two to tango. You can't just. You're going to need somebody that wants to buy the team in order for you to sell it. And if it's not going to be this guy, then I don't know who it's going to be, because this guy seemed like the perfect case, or the perfect guy to come in order to buy the team. But yeah, that's be interesting to see. That's just another storyline to follow throughout this baseball season that has quite a few of them, including this Mookie Betts deal potentially falling through. We'll probably talk more about that in a couple of days. If that actually happens, that would be an absolute disaster for all parties involved if that doesn't work. Well, maybe not for the Dodgers because they don't really need Mookie, but it'd be a disaster for the Red Sox because you can't have Mookie show up to spring training after you just tried to trade him and the deal fell through. That would be the worst case scenario. So yeah, there's quite a few storylines that we're going to be following in the beginning. With this baseball season getting ready to spring training stuff getting ready to start up pretty soon. Pitchers and catchers reporting next week, I believe. But yeah, this will just be another one. See if anybody new comes along and wants to buy the Mets. I mean, if you're out there, you're looking for a team to own, now's the time, because the Wilpons seem to be willing to sell as long as you keep Jeff on in some capacity. Though, again, I keep saying that, but I can't blame the Wilpons for that. It seems like Cohen had his own reasons for trying to change things up. So who knows who's really at fault. But again, if there's anybody out there that wants to buy a baseball team, the Mets seem to be up for sale. So now might be your best shot. So after that, coming up next, we will discuss the XFL starting up this weekend. Game starting on Saturday. And have we made a decision on if we're watching this all as a football community? Because I know, like, I am, but I don't know if we officially come to that decision yet. So we'll talk about that. Talk about what I'm looking forward to, players I'm looking forward to seeing, different aspects of it that I'm looking forward to, and just the fact that we still technically have football. I mean, when is that ever a bad thing? So we'll talk about all that stuff right after this break.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, written by GSMC Podcast Network. So, as a person that loves football and will consume just about anything that involves football, I mean, I watched this isn't all football. I watched the Aaron Hernandez documentary on Netflix, the All or Nothing special coming out about the Eagles. The thing comes out Friday. Yeah, it was the 7th? When the 7th Friday? Yeah, 7th is Friday. So by the time you hear it, it'll probably already be out on Amazon Prime if you have that. I'll be watching that. I mean, I watch Hard Knocks. I watch the AAF. So it's only right that I continue and watch the XFL. I mean, if nothing more, it is more football. And when is more football ever a bad thing? I mean, it's bad for the players. Let me not say that. But as a consumer and as a fan of the sport, more ways to watch football and more leagues and all that stuff. I mean, that doesn't affect me at all. Like I said, I watch the AAF games, mildly entertaining. I mean, again, not the NFL, so the talent level a little bit lower. So the play on the field is not as great, but it's still football, still entertaining. So, I know I'm watching it, and I hope that you'll be watching. I mean, look, they have you seen the promos? They got DMX on for the theme. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily the theme song, but they got DMX on the song. It's gonna give it to you. I mean, I don't know who was in charge of making that decision at the XFL, but that person deserves a raise because that was a fire decision. I mean, X gonna give it to you for the XFL. I mean, it's the perfect marriage. I mean, if you didn't need a reason to watch the games before, at least give them a shot for an ad. The fact that their theme song, quote unquote, is going to be X gonna give it to you. I mean, I don't really know what more you would need, honestly. But I'll give you some more if you want more reasons to watch. Obviously, we discussed some of the rule changes, so I'll get to some of those in a second. But for starters, I mean, the main thing that's going to come out of this is going to be the players, and obviously a lot of these players are former NFL players that maybe didn't make it. They're trying to find their way back into the league, and I mean, much like the AAF, though, I mean, they ended up having to fold because they didn't have the money to afford it. But so there were guys out there that were able to parlay that play into being able to get on the NFL roster and stay on the NFL roster. I mean, obviously it was well documented. Greg Ward for the Eagles was the guy that was an AAF guy. Obviously, he went through some other avenues as well, but he was a former AAF guy that was now on a roster and will most likely be on one next year as well. I think, who else was it? Chandon Sullivan, I believe, who's on the Packers this year as a cornerback. He was the guy that went through the AAF. There were a couple other guys too, but I mean, it's just for these guys, the players at least, it gives them another opportunity to have a shot to get back into the league, which I mean is obviously the reason why all these guys are playing. But yeah, a couple interesting names. One of them being quarterback. Landry Jones. He was the first quarterback signed by the XFL. He's back with his college coach Bob Stooch, which I mean, at the very least, he should be familiar with that. So that should allow for some better play, just because he's used to that system and has an idea of what he's doing. He's former Steelers backup. He was a guy that, I mean, like he was a backup not all that long ago. So he's a guy that if he's good health wise and he shows some things, he's a guy that could potentially parlay this back into another NFL contract. Because I mean, they'll sign just about anybody to be a backup. It seems like there's a multitude of guys, anybody with cap. But that's a topic for a completely different day. But yeah, if he shows something, he could be potentially back in the league. Another guy, Cardell Jones, who was a college standout, if you will, probably should have left after that Ohio State championship. Decided to stay an extra year. Didn't really work out in his favor. I mean, I'm not saying it would have been a first round pick had he went out, but the less games you have for people to scrutinize and criticize, the better. Because, like I said, once you put more games out there on film, they have more stuff to look at and more reasons to talk about why you're not as good as other people think you are. That's why those guys. I mean, that's likely how quarterbacks. No offense to him, but you look at a guy like Mitch Trubisky, who started for 1 year in North Carolina and went before Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, who had way more years on him. But because they had way more years, there's more things to pick out, more things to criticize, and that causes guys that maybe only have that 1 year of college starting, playing time and reps and all that stuff, to maybe leapfrog to some of those guys just because there's less stuff to scrutinize. And the similar things happening to. Well, not similar thing because Tua was hurt, but if Tua wasn't hurt, I know there's still people that are saying Joe Burrow should go ahead of him. I'm not one of those, though. Joe Burrow I think is good, but again, he didn't really play much at Ohio State. Then came to LSU, was okay last year. Then obviously was sensational this year. Had the best season college wise from a quarterback we'd ever seen. But when you when you talk about Tua played in the championship game. Tua had all last season. Tua had this season before he got hurt. Like, there was just more stuff for people to pick at and scrutinize. So it's not surprising. But yeah, so didn't work out for Cardell Jones, but this is a nice chance for him to get back and get back into that spotlight and show people that he still is capable. And he's one of the people that one of the names people might recognize. And I think that's going to be probably the biggest issue for this league, at least in the beginning, just the fact that they don't have that many guys. Like, you have to be a diehard football fan to be like, oh, I remember that guy, or oh, I remember this guy, that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of that will be helped out if the play on the field is good. If the play on the field is good, then, again, people watch and love football in this country. So if the play on the field is good, they will watch it, they will consume it. So yeah, and I think so. Then you have guys like that. Have like I said, Landry Jones, Cardell Jones. Some of the other names. One of the other names people might recognize is Coney Ealy, defensive end. He was a second round pick for the Panthers. Started some games for them. Bounced around a little bit after that. He's only 28, so he has a shot to try to work himself back into the league. Maybe get himself on just get on training camp roster, maybe maybe sneak into a 53 kind of situation. Another guy that I'm kind of interested in is Quentin Flowers on Tampa Bay Viper. He was a USF guy, a South Florida guy in college, who played quarterback, but was basically a running back. and he's kind of going to do a little bit of both. Things listed as both a quarterback and a running back in this league. And the one rule, the multiple forward pass rule, that seems something that could benefit a guy like him, just because he's a guy that may not necessarily play quarterback, but he can still show off that arm if need be. So he's a guy I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on, just because I remember him from his college days, and he was an electric guy with the ball in his hands, and let's see how well that translates over. And he, like I said, he could be a fun gadget type of guy, just something that, I know the league in the beginning is probably going to have to try to find guys that can create some of those highlight plays, stuff that will get people to want to tune in and want to keep watching week after week after week. And this is the kind of player that could provide some of that stuff. So, and I mean, obviously, no offense to defensive guys, but everybody loves offense. So, having guys that are explosive offensively could be interesting. And then obviously, probably one of the most noteworthy guys in terms of name is Marquette King. I'm the punter, even though there's not really much need for punting. I mean, there's obviously need for punting because you still got to punt, but it's like a punter is wouldn't really be considered a noteworthy guy. But I mean, he's a former All-Pro. It was surprisingly cut by the Raiders when John Gruden got there. But I mean, at least he's a guy who could add some flair, some pizzazz to the league. And again, he's a guy that people at least will recognize by name if they're watching. Like, oh yeah, I remember that guy, or oh yeah, I remember this guy. But he's going to be one of those guys that people will at least remember. So that'd be interesting. And now see some of the rule changes that I know we've talked about in the past, but some of the ones I'm looking forward to are the no extra points. No offense to kickers, but I mean, I like more points scored. So the options to go for the 1, 2, or 3 point extra point attempts, and obviously the chance to get up to 9 points for a touchdown. That's pretty cool. And then obviously they back up the double forward pass thing, which we already discussed. The ball that might not necessarily be quarterbacks. What was it? The kickoff rule. I was interested in that just because it just allows for more kicking. Yeah, the kicker will kick the ball from 30, but every blocker will be lined up at the opposing team's 35-yard line. The return team blockers will be lined up at their own 30, just 5 yards away. Only the kicker and receiver can move until the ball is caught. And then obviously that'll allow for, well, in theory, better returns and more returns. So that would be interesting. I understand why the NFL outlawed, just because, not necessarily outlawed it, but I've been trying to outlaw the kick returns just because it's not as safe. But there's still exciting plays when you have a guy that can return kicks, and it's a vital part of your team, and it can flip field position, and also just it's electrifying part of the game. Just like, I mean, Devin Hester was one of the more fun players to watch. I was looking for the right word, but one of the more fun players to watch is because every time he got the ball, you thought, "Oh my gosh, he could take it to the house." And I mean, he did in the Super Bowl. So that was interesting. But yeah, no, the XFL, I know I'm at least going to give it a chance this weekend. I got 4 games. I don't think I'm going to be doing that much. So I think the first game is when at 2 o'clock on ESPN, no, ABC. Excuse me. 2 o'clock on ABC. Then there's a 5 o'clock on Fox. And then Sunday they got a 2 and a 5 again. So, like I said, only 2 games. Well, not only. I think I might have messed that up before. But there's 2 games for Saturday, 2 games Sunday. So if you're not doing too much earlier in the day, obviously you still have your night. You don't got to worry about that. Game should be over. The second game should be over by 7:30, 8 o'clock. You'll be good to go if you want to do something with your Saturday night. But yeah, like I said, football is football. I will watch it because it is football. I imagine I won't be alone. A lot of people are going to watch it because it's football. And as a guy that supported the AAF until it had to disband, there's no reason not to support this. From my perspective, there's no reason for me not to support it, just because I like football, and then also just be interesting to see if any of these guys showcase enough ability to be able to get back into the league. Because that's obviously what they're doing this for. They don't want to give up on their dream to play in the NFL, and this is an avenue for them to continue to do that. So I like a good feel-good story. I want to see a couple of these guys be on NFL rosters next year and maybe make impactful plays for their teams. It's a cool thing. It's cool. I mean, that's why we watch sports. Sports are the greatest soap opera that you could put that TV could put on. So, I'll be tuned in. And also, I mean, like I said, they have X Gon' Give It To You is the unofficial theme song. I mean, I don't know how, if that didn't sell you, I mean, like I said, I don't know what will. I mean, unless you're just not a DMX guy, which, I mean, if you aren't, then we have bigger issues. But I'm just saying that there's enough to like to at least give it a try. If the product's bad, then the product's bad. But at least seems to be enough to at least give it a shot this weekend and maybe even next weekend just to see until it gets his legs under it. But yeah, I mean, we gotta. I don't understand why we wouldn't at least give it a shot. That's all I'm asking. I'm just gonna give it a shot. Whatever happens from there. So after this next break, we're going to come back and talk about NFL teams. So switch from XFL to NFL. NFL teams that are deciding that coordinators aren't necessary anymore, and it's a new thing. A lot of teams are doing it. I don't really know how I feel about it, but it seems like it may be a thing that's going to continue to happen from here on out. So we're going to have to discuss it and see if I think it's a good idea, because I'm not. Well, I'll talk it out with you guys. I'm not really sure if it's a good idea or not, but it's already happening, so there's not much we can do about it. But yeah, so we'll talk about that right after this last break.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
If you're not an Eagles fan, you're going to be paying attention to this. But if you were, or if you are, then you would know that their search for an offensive coordinator ended with them not finding an offensive coordinator. Now, they interviewed guys, but it just didn't end up happening. And what they decided to do was something that the 49ers did this past year, and the Rams did in the past, so they kind of changed it up because their offense wasn't that good this past year, so understandably so. But yes, they decided to go the no offensive coordinator route. They have their head coach, obviously Doug Peterson, who's going to call the plays and has called the plays since he got there. But now they have a run game coordinator, they have a pass game coordinator, they have a senior assistant, they have obviously all their position coaches, they have a pass game analyst, I believe, an assistant run game coordinator. Like they have a bunch of titles for people that you don't really know exactly what that means, but they replace, instead of having an office coordinator, they have a bunch of different guys do a bunch of different things. And this is interesting because, like I said, it's something that the 49ers did this past year. Obviously, they were successful. It's something that I think Mike Vrabel talked about. They might not hire a defense coordinator this year, but then and Mike Vrabel will be more hands-on on calling the defense. Who is Dan Pease retired? I'm pretty sure he retired. Dean Pease, excuse me. Yeah, no, he retired. Yeah, he retired he stepped down from the Titans. And yeah, it's just, I mean, especially with them, he stepped down in the middle of January, so at that point it's kind of hard to get a guy, maybe get a suitable guy, just because anybody that a lot of people that had those kind of openings may have already filled them by this point, so it's kind of difficult. But yeah, so Mike Vrabel talked about them not having a defense coordinator, and just this is very new generation football. It's like, hey, and I mean I get it to a degree, just because like, hey, look, on both sides of the ball, if I'm a head coach, right, and say my specialty is offense, and I'm going to be calling the plays, then for all intents and purposes, I'm the offensive coordinator. Because that's basically what the offensive coordinator does if he's not calling the plays. But that doesn't mean I can do everything myself. I still need guys to help me come up with game plans, come up with scripts, come up with help scheme up new plays to attack defense in certain ways. So I think that's why just having a guy that is officially named offensive coordinator isn't as necessary as having guys that can do the job of what an offense coordinator would fill. And I know that the Eagles have been a team that was trying to find whose offense, I don't want to say struggled, but has been as good as it was since Frank Reich left. And I don't know if that's because if Mike Grove wasn't as good of an offense coordinator as Frank Reich was, or if just because he was asked to do different things than Frank Reich was, and maybe he's not as good as those things or what have you. But I mean, he kind of talked about him being, to a degree, the passing game coordinator, just helping design pass concepts and plays to get people open in the passing game. And obviously, I struggled for most of the season, if you didn't know. And if you didn't know, again, like I said, the All or Nothing series on Amazon Prime is coming out. Well, will already be out today by the time you hear this. But yeah, so if you want to take a look at that, you can take a look at that. It'd be interesting to see how that works. Just like Amazon's versions of Hard Knocks, if you didn't know. But yeah, so then teams are going this route just because if you have your coach that's calling the plays, which is basically what an offense coordinator was doing in the past, just like he'd call the plays, organize the game plans, the scripts. Obviously, with the help of his coach, I don't imagine he was doing this all by himself, though. Technically, I don't know, but I'd imagine he wasn't doing this all by himself. So yeah, that's what the head coach does now. Then it's like, all right, do we really need somebody to be placed under the label offensive coordinator? If we have enough guys on the staff to do what an offensive coordinator would do. And from that perspective, I'm like, okay, I kind of see the vision. Because it's like, if the offensive coordinator is gonna be a guy that isn't really calling plays, then it's never really going to be his offense. And I think that's could be part of the issue, because if you're the offensive coordinator and the offense struggles, to a degree, depending on how much clout your head coach has, you're going to get the blame for it because again, you're the offensive coordinator. But if you're not calling the plays, then it's like how much effect do you have on the game day stuff? Like you might be able to, maybe you struggle putting the game plan together, maybe your script wasn't that good, maybe some of the schemes and concepts you try to come up with just didn't work out this week. All right, that's fine, but you're not the one on Sundays or Mondays or Thursdays, whenever you're playing, calling the plays and making those in-game decisions from an offensive perspective. You may have some input here or there, but you're not the one with the final say. You're not the one making decisions. So it's like, do you really need a guy to be labeled the offensive coordinator if that role technically isn't really that necessary? Because I talked about with the Eagles, they have multiple guys on their offensive staff doing a multitude of things that I don't even know exactly what they all are. Only they know. But like I said, if you have a guy's job is to help figure out running plays and running schemes and concepts and designs to help attack a defense, and you have a guy who's a passing game coordinator to do that same thing, obviously, except for the pass, then it's like, all right, then what does the offense coordinator do? Because if he's not doing any of that, and he's not calling the plays, then, like, what is he doing? Especially, well, again, this is not all the teams, but I know the way the Eagles are, their game planning stuff is like a collaborative effort. So if you already have different coaches giving input on that, like, do you need, I guess maybe you could have one guy help put it all together, and that's maybe what their senior offensive analyst, or is it assistant or analyst? Let me double check for you guys. I think it's assistant. Will be doing. And like I said, if that is in fact the case, then what do you need? Again, they have a senior offensive assistant. Maybe he'll help with the game plan stuff or help with the first 15 plays that all these teams have. So I'm saying if that's the case, then do you need a guy to be labeled offensive coordinator? And I think that's the thing. If that continues that way, then us as fans we need to become accustomed to that and not like freak out. I know on Twitter a lot of Eagles fans are freaking out because like, oh my god, they don't have an offensive coordinator. And I'm just like, yes, but if they have a bunch of people that can do the role of the offensive coordinator, then like, what's the point of just having a guy as an offensive coordinator as a name? Just I mean, all that really means is that you just have a guy to point fingers at when things don't go right. That's basically what Mike Groh was for the past 2 seasons from the Eagles. He was just a guy that allowed you to point a finger at somebody, and I mean that's really all. That's at the end of the day, that's what most fans. That's all we're looking for. Just all right, things aren't going wrong. I mean, things aren't going well. Who do we blame? And like I said, with no offensive coordinator, then I guess the finger points right at that coach, which I mean, good for him for being willing to take on that pressure. But that's the easy thing with the offense or the defense coordinator is like when things are going great, the head coach and all the players and stuff get the credit. But when things are going bad, it's like, oh, let's point a finger at this guy, let's point a finger at that guy. And now if more teams doing that, then it makes it's more ambiguous in terms of who deserves that blame. But again, that shouldn't be the important aspect of it. But it'll be interesting to see because if the Eagles have success with this, and then obviously the Niners have success with this past season, then maybe more teams would go to this. Or even like from a defensive side, if the Titans have success with this, where they don't really have a quote unquote defensive coordinator, but they have their head coach that calls the plays, or they have another position coach or whoever call the plays. And I've always think if these teams have success, because as we've talked about, NFL is a copycat league. So they will see things that are successful and try to duplicate them. And if this is successful in terms of another team being able to function well without an offensive coordinator, then I don't want to say that because again, they have a lot of random offensive staff jobs. So it's not anybody's losing. They're not like they're losing positions. Your just title is different. So just because you're not labeled an offensive coordinator, quote unquote, does not mean you're not doing the things that an offensive coordinator would do. You just don't have that necessarily title. So that'll be interesting to see if, like, what changes that'll come, whether that's monetary, whether that's just the way you're viewed as a guy throughout the league. Because obviously, when offense is doing well, it's like, all right, we're going to interview their offensive coordinator for their head coaching job. It's just like a common thing people have. And if you're not a head offensive coordinator anymore, you're the passing game coordinator, or you're the running game coordinator, you're the pass game analyst or senior offensive assistant. Like, how does that view how people around the league look at you in terms of filling some potential roles for head coaches and things like that? That'll be another interesting aspect of it, just because if there's no official, like, oh, this person's the offensive coordinator of this team, this offense is doing really well, then how do we know who deserves the credit? Even to a degree, like, for, like, different coaches that call the plays. If you call the plays, then you're basically the offensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator just helping you throughout the week organize some stuff. You don't really know how he'll be as the offensive coordinator until he's actually in charge of calling the plays. So if you're an offensive coordinator that doesn't really call the plays anyway, then I'm just like, all right, then I could see why you wouldn't be needed. But obviously, not every coach has that kind of clout. Not every coach has that ability to be able to be like, hey, I'm going to call the offensive plays. Though obviously every coach wants to be that. I mean, if these guys were offensive coaches before this and they got the head coach position, you want to continue calling plays because that's what got you to the point where you're at. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm not sure how it's going to work, having all these different voices and all these different people with all these different titles in the room. But if it does work, then this could be something we see more and more and more throughout the league. Because like I said, NFL's copycat league. They're in a sense copying this from the 49ers. Who may or may not have, I forget. I don't know if I think because when Matt LaFleur left to go to the Titans, I think that's officially when the Rams. I don't know if they hired an offensive coordinator, or maybe they did not hire an offensive coordinator after last season when their guys left. I don't remember which year it was, but I just know the Rams didn't have an offensive coordinator this past year, and we saw how that went because their offense took a step back. Though a lot of it had to do with the fact their O-line stunk. and their quarterback regressed. I don't know if that had anything to do with the fact they didn't have an offensive coordinator. And honestly, that's kind of what's going to come down to. Is at the end of the day, no matter who you have with all these fancy titles and these different positions or whatever, if the players don't make plays, who has what label doesn't really matter. You need guys that are going to go out there and make the plays, make the throws, make the catches, make the blocks, break the tackles, all that fun stuff. And the what people are labeled as a part of the staff aren't really going to affect that once you get onto the field on Sundays. So, long story short, as much as obviously having or not having an offensive coordinator will be the more talked about thing, at the end of the day, players just got to make the plays. If they make the plays, then no one would even pay attention to the fact that the Eagles don't have a quote unquote offensive coordinator. Because like I said, no one really paid attention to that when the Niners were doing that this past year. It wasn't like a big deal. It was just like, oh, Kyle Shanahan's a great play caller. All right, and that's all that matters. That is all that matters. But I'm interested to see. So that's a storyline if you're an Eagles fan, just to follow throughout next season, just to see how the offense looks with all these different pass game and run game coordinators and analysts and assistants and all these different guys, just to see how this new dynamic on the team works. Because if it works well, then boom, that's how they're going to go. If it's a disaster, then Doug's in trouble and they might go back to having an offensive coordinator. We won't know. But that'd be interesting to see if this is a trend that continues, or this is just like a few coaches trying to zig when everybody else zags. But like I said, I feel like this could be something that is more consistent and something that's going to continue throughout the future, especially if you have more of these coaches that are calling their own plays. It's like the offensive coordinator position is really not as necessary as it once was if you're not calling the plays. And a lot of these head coaches want to call their own plays, so maybe offensive coordinator isn't really that necessary. So that'll do it for me here on another episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys all for listening to me once again talk about a bunch of sports-related topics. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you're all on top of whenever we drop stuff. Make sure you never miss an episode. If you could as well, give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. It would be very appreciated. Like I said, allows us to see what you guys like, what you guys didn't like, see ways we can improve, see ways we can get better. And if you're on social media, we are also on social media, so you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Come, chat, discuss, debate, all that fun stuff that people like to do on social media. You can do that with us. You can interact with us in that way. And yeah, it'll be fun. I would love to talk to you guys about whatever sports things are on your hearts and on your minds that day. So, as always, I have been Chris Blades. Again, I want to thank you guys for listening. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.